In this XSO's football video breakdown, we're going to take a look at an offensive play out of a strong closed formation that I like to run to go ahead and beat bump and run man coverage. The name of the play is called DBL Stutter Go, and this particular play is not only is it effective against bump and run man coverage, but it can also be ran against man, and it can also be ran against zone coverages. So let's go ahead and take a look at the pass routes. And as you look at it out here towards the left, let's go ahead and take a look at the split end. What he runs is basically a stop and go route. So what he winds up doing here is he winds up going up the field in this area here, and then he winds up stopping, and then he winds up going up the field. And then you wind up having that same pass route being ran by the flanker who's lined up here on the right. He runs that exact same route. So he'll wind up going up the field as well, and he'll wind up stopping, going up the field right there, such as what you see there. So those two pass routes are mirror routes, so they wind up having them on both sides of the field. And if we work our way towards the inside, we're going to wind up having the tight end. The tight end, of course, is lined up right here. Now, what he runs is more or less a spot route. So what he winds up doing here is he winds up coming in this area here, and then he winds up coming back towards the quarterback. Against man coverage, you should find him open for a short little pass. Probably won't pick up a whole lot, but he is there. Even against zone coverage, usually he'll be wind up being underneath the pass coverage is where you can make that throw. The fullback, he winds up coming out of the backfield, and he runs a flat route over here towards the right. Now, if your opponent was to run man coverage, it's probably not going to be open. Against zone coverage, if your opponent was to call some type of blitz, maybe they wind up having, let's go ahead and clear that. If they wind up calling some type of some type of blitz when they call it zone defense, and say this guy comes off the edge here, and then there's no defenders out here covering the flat, then you might find him open in the flat to go ahead and throw it to him. So that's really it as far as the pass routes. Obviously, the halfback's going to stay in the pass block over here towards the left. So there's what we have right there. So what we're going to do with this particular play is we're not going to make any type of hot route adjustments. The only thing we are going to do is we are going to go ahead and use some motion. So what we're going to wind up doing is putting this guy in motion, which is going to be the flanker. We're going to send him in motion and snap the ball before he sets. Now, before we do that, let's go ahead and take a look at the defense. And this is just a two-man under type defense out of the 3-4, one of the 3-4 defenses. And as you can see right there, bump and run obviously has been called. Anytime they run a two-man under type defense, bump and run man coverage is always called. Just keep that in mind. All right, let's go back in here and just take a look at this. And this is what we're going to wind up doing with this particular play. We're actually going to wind up throwing to the flanker. I want you guys to go ahead and watch this, and then we'll talk about some other stuff that goes on with this play. So let's go ahead and send him in motion. And then we're going to snap the ball before he sets, and then we're just looking to throw the ball before he stops. And right there we wind up picking up about 12 yards. So generally you can expect to pick anywhere up between 10 to 15 yards with this play as long as you throw it on time. And then generally that's going to be a nice little play to go ahead and beat bump and run man coverage. The reason that this play works, and you kind of see it as you're watching the replay there, a lot of times the defender is looking at the receiver. He's not looking at the ball since he's in man coverage. And when that ball's being thrown, he's not turning around in time, and then you can wind up completing it, making it a nice play to go ahead and beat bump and run man coverage. Let's go ahead and look at it in instant replay, because there's some other things I want to talk about with this particular play. Not only that pass route, but also the split ends pass route. So let's go back in here just real quick. And as I said before, what we wind up doing with this receiver here, which is the flanker, we went ahead and put him in motion. We snap the ball when he gets to the outside. Then what he's going to wind up doing is he's going to wind up going up the field about in this area here, and just before he stops, so we'll say he stops right there, we're going to go ahead as the quarterback, we're going to go ahead and drop the ball and drop the quarterback back, and then what we want to do is we want to go ahead and locate him before he stops, and then we're just going to go ahead and make that throw. In this case, what we wind up doing with it, we actually wind up throwing it probably at, if you look at your controller as a clock, when you think about it, we more or less threw the ball about the 2 o'clock position. So we went in this area here about the 2 o'clock position when we threw it. And so we want to throw the ball a little bit to the outside. We want to kind of throw it high, maybe at the 2 o'clock, probably 2 o'clock position would be a little bit better. You want to play around with that a little bit and see what kind of results you get with it. But that's kind of what we did with this play. So if you're looking at it, you can see right now that we're going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit here so you can kind of see it from the quarterback's perspective, at least from behind. And then we're just going to go ahead and throw that. We're just throwing that pass to the outside, or at least trying to get to the outside. And he winds up catching it right in that area there when we make the throw. And you can kind of see that as I was saying earlier about how this guy right here, which is that corner right now, he's actually looking away. He's not even looking at the receiver when this ball has been completed. But if you go back a little bit, you'll actually notice that he was looking at the receiver, at least initially. Let's go back here and zoom in on him just a little bit, and we'll just take a look at that a little bit. And if you look at it, you can see right there he's looking at him right now, as I said earlier. So nice play to go ahead and beat bump and run man coverage as far as with the flanker. However, there is another option to throw to. And let's go back over here and take a look at this one. I'm going to go work my way back over towards the split end. And I want you guys to kind of concentrate on these two guys, which is going to wind up being the right cornerback who's lined up here, and of course the split end lined up right there. I want you guys to watch and see what happens here, and I think you guys can kind of get an idea what I'm about to show here if I zoom out just a little bit. Watch what that corner does. See how he goes to the inside, such as what you're seeing on your screen? Well, if you see that, and then a lot of times we can go ahead and do this with the quarterback. We can actually go ahead and let's go back in instant replay here and do it from behind the quarterback's perspective, and you can kind of see what I'm talking about right there. So we're dropping the quarterback back. See how that corner winds up going to the inside there as we're looking at it. So you're the quarterback and you see this. You see this guy go inside. You're like, man, I got that. I know I can throw it to that flanker on the other side, but geez, that guy's kind of open. Look where that safety's at, way down there. If I could just get that ball in there, I can wind up completing it. And to be honest with you, if you see this, you can get it completed. So you could go ahead and make this throw into this area here, and a lot of times you can wind up completing it. Let's go ahead and actually take a look at that and see if we can get to work here in this particular video breakdown. Keep in mind I'm doing this live. I'm not doing any kind of cut-ups or anything like that. So sometimes when I draw up things, they may not always work the way that I anticipate them to work when I'm doing these video breakdowns. But with that said, I still want to go ahead and show you guys just to see how wide open he gets. He may very well wind up just getting hit by the free safety and wind up dropping the ball. Let's go ahead and just take a look at it and go ahead and run the play. We're going to put this guy in motion, and then we'll just take a look at it and see what we wind up getting there. And we just throw it high. That time it winds up being picked off. So sometimes that's going to happen with this play where you wind up getting it picked off and you're like, ah, man, you know, when you throw that, you got to be careful with it. Let's go ahead and go back in here just real quick. I'm going to go ahead and punt this. And this is something else I can do while we're sitting here. We can kind of lab this a little bit. Remember, I think if you guys watched a couple weeks ago when I showed the breakdown where I was labbing, I wind up having my offense and defense being the exact same two teams. This is exactly why I do that, where I wind up having both the same teams playing offense and defense. The reason is that way I ain't got to do what I'm about to show here where I got to punt the ball back. It's just a bunch of extra stuff that I don't need to do. So if you watch that video that's here up here on my Madden Pads YouTube, you go back there and just call it How to Lab. That's what this is about, exactly what I'm showing here. So this is actually kind of good that I was able to talk about this. Let's go ahead and run this play one more time and see if we can't get this right. Now, as I said before, the better option really is going to wind up being the flanker out there on the outside on the right as he runs his route, whereas on this side it's kind of more of a not always going to be there all the time. Let's go ahead and run it and see if we can get it this time and see if we can get him open when we make this throw. That time, that corner winds up playing him a little bit tighter, so we're not able to get that throw in there. Let's go ahead and do it again, same thing. And like I said, it's not always going to be there for you. It's one of those things that I said earlier that you might as well kind of just look to go ahead and wait. And you know you're going to have the flanker open. And if you want to go ahead and try to make this throw, that's fine, but just not always going to be there. It also depends on the corner, too. So it depends on the corner. That time we're going to wind up getting it in there. So you can see that the play works. It's just not, to me, as consistent as throwing to the flanker. So you kind of seen everything that could possibly happen with this play. If you go ahead and try to throw to the flanker, it's not always there, whereas the other one's almost guaranteed that it's going to be open. So let's look at this one from the instant replay just real quick, and then we'll get out of here. Sorry that it took a little bit longer with this video breakdown, but sometimes you don't have things go as you want them to when you do these plays live, such as what I'm doing. So let's go ahead and look at this. And you can see right there what I was talking about earlier about that corner as he comes inside. Here comes the corner. He's going inside right there. He's coming to the inside, like I said earlier. And then you wind up having that where you can just throw the ball. In that case, what I wind up doing, I'll kind of just tell you what I did as far as with the controller. I actually kind of threw it up in this area here, about the 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock position when I made that throw. So that's something that you got to go ahead and look and go ahead and mess around with it. You get some time to go ahead and lab it. Something that you guys can mess around with. One thing I will give you guys a little bit of a heads up. If you run this against cover 1 bump and run man coverage, cover 0 bump and run man coverage, you may not find this as open as what I'm showing here. As a matter of fact, let's just do that real quick. Got enough time to go one more thing here, just real quick. I like to be pretty thorough when I break down plays, and I know I get a little winded, but I like to be a little bit more thorough than some of the stuff I see out there on YouTube. Sometimes I like to try to make sure I get you guys at least what I feel like needs to be shown. So let's go ahead and call bump and run man coverage. We're going to run this against a pinch defense, and just to see what happens this time as far as with this. Let's go ahead and put him in motion to the outside. See what I mean about him not getting as open? You still can make that throw to him, but he doesn't get that clean release where he's much, much more open than when we saw earlier. So at any rate, this is called strong close. It's called Double Stutter Go. I'm using the Texans playbook. This is found in some other playbooks as well, but this is the one that we're using here. So it's called Double Stutter Go. Check out the Texan playbook. And don't forget to check out mymaddenpad.com or xsosfootball.com for more Madden 13 tips.